I almost don't believe it that these words are coming out of my mouth, and I wouldn't blame you if you don't believe it either, but reportedly, Beyond Good and Evil 2 is still in active development. This according to a Ubisoft representative who spoke with Eurogamer yesterday and said, development is underway and the team is hard at work to deliver on its ambitious promise. And ambitious it is. This game has had quite a lot of anticipation over the years. It's waxed and waned a bit, but overall, there's been excitement about it because it's a third-person open-world action RPG with entire, fully explorable and fully realized planets and the ability to seamlessly travel from surface to space and then fly in space and land on another planet, all with no loading screens. Each planet, they've said, would be fully realized, consisting of a combination of the wilderness, like various biomes and terrains, with fully handcrafted points of interest, sprawling cities, dungeons, and other landmarks. Cities and towns would be populated potentially with thousands of other NPCs, many of which you could speak to, get quests from, or help out, or even possibly rob, because you are a space pirate and there is a crime system, and breaking laws on any of the planets would also flag you as wanted, with the policing agencies of that area coming after you, kind of like in GTA styling. And that entire premise, the whole idea behind this game, is that you start off as like a level 1 thug, basically, nothing to your name, nobody cares about you, but then you build up your criminal empire, engaging in activities, eventually recruiting a crew, and amassing enough wealth to own your own capital ship and be the kingpin pirate of your solar system. It was said to be a lot like No Man's Sky, but with less focus on the procedural stuff of gathering and crafting these randomly generated planets, and more on bespoke RPG things. Kind of think of Beyond Good and Evil 2 as a combination of Mass Effect, Grand Theft Auto, but at the scale and seamlessness of a No Man's Sky. It was a really, really cool idea. Plus, they would have multiplayer with this co-op where you and your friends could play together, but go off and do your own things in this huge playable space. It's actually incredible what they were talking about, and what they've shown of the game so far, although it looked to be in much need of polish, was fairly impressive in terms of the technical side of things and the scale. And it's for those reasons that this game has been so highly sought after ever since the original reveal over 15 years ago. Yes, that's right. This game has had a very long development, to put it lightly. First revealed at Ubi Days back in 2008, Beyond Good and Evil 2 has now surpassed Duke Nukem Forever as holding the record of longest in-development AAA game. Of course, the reality is not that it has had continuous uninterrupted development, but that since the first reveal, it's gone through several reboots. Most recently, we got news that they appear to have started over once again at some point within the past 3 to 5 years. Specifically, we heard last fall from playtesters who had hands-on time with the game that it was still in early development, consisting of just a few small areas with low-resolution textures. An article covering these leaks went on to say that the game has probably been rebooted since the pre-alpha demo walkthrough that we saw in 2018, as nothing shows the same level of detail that we saw back then. A majority of the images and footages that they saw showed bare planets and blocked structures for buildings. Any structures that had some form of detail were very low quality, almost like the game was being played in ultra low resolution. And all of the footage provided, unfortunately, looked nothing like the quality of gameplay shown back in 2018. So yes, it does appear like even just recently, within these past 3 to 5 years, the game has seen once more another reboot. Now, 2018 was the last time we got any significant update for Beyond Good and Evil 2. They had released several videos over the course of 2017 and 2018, many of these coming from various events they hosted where they had an actual playable demo. In those 2 years, we saw cinematic trailers, several gameplay walkthroughs with hands-on, like live gameplay with the developers talking through the experience, several developer interviews and other showcase videos. What they were showing and talking about looked pretty cool. I went back for making this video to rewatch some of that stuff, and really awesome looking, really, especially in terms of the tech. Definitely looked like it needed a bit of polish, and there was kind of a lack of excitement and enthusiasm behind the overall design and visual presentation that they were showing of the game, at least from those live gameplay demos. It felt very much almost like a tech demo. And in fact, in a lot of ways, when they were showcasing some of this, they were saying it was a tech demo, because yes, we talked about in a recent video for Ubisoft's upcoming Star Wars open world game. Ubisoft Montpellier, who are the ones working on this, created their very own engine for this project, the Voyager engine. And when you make your own engine, it can be great because it can kind of push beyond the boundaries and limitations of some of the existing engines that are out there on the market. But the problem is you tend to run into all sorts of issues. There can be pipeline issues. There can just be a lot of problems and issues that come up whenever a studio tries to go with making their own engine from scratch rather than working on the back of a pre-existing engine that has a lot of the issues ironed out, essentially. And I am not sure if that is an issue that has kind of drawn out the development of Beyond Good and Evil 2, but it is certainly something to consider. So the last official update we got for this game was a short gameplay video released in December 2018. This came shortly after the news that the game's creator, Michael Ansel, was retiring from work in the video game industry. Maybe this was due to him having worked on this project for 10 years straight and it seemingly being nowhere near a release, but it could also stem from the fact that there were a lot of reports circulating at the time criticizing his leadership style and pinning some of the issues with the game's development on the fact that he was the leader, changes in scope and scale, being overly harsh and critical with members of the team, and just not being good to work for, but also not being good for the health of the project and the development of the game. Now, since that news, since that video in 2018, it's basically been radio silence on this game. They did hold like a couple of community streams. They also announced that there would be a Netflix production for this franchise. And then in 2019, we saw this tweet saying, "We're done, almost. Stick around, people, as there's one more surprise for all Beyond Good and Evil 2 fans." This was in October 2019. I don't know what almost done meant at the time when they tweeted this, but clearly they were not almost done, because since then there have really been no updates or news for the past 4 years straight. So I am happy to hear that the game is still in active development. What I find so interesting about Ubisoft coming out on the record to say Beyond Good and Evil 2 is still in development is the fact that this comes amidst recent reports as of last week that the company is going through a really rough time right now, having failed to meet their financial expectations for 2022. I am kind of surprised they had any expectations to begin with, considering the only games they launched were Just Dance, Roller Champions, and the Switch exclusive Mario and Rabbids. But regardless, they had expectations for the year. They failed to meet them, and as a result, they said that they will be reining things in, focusing on their big franchises, the big budget stuff, and also simultaneously cutting budgets to the tune of roughly $200 million, effective immediately. They also said they've canceled development of 3 unannounced games that they had in production. This on top of the 4 other games that have already been canceled this past year. Skull and Bones had its launch delayed. I believe this is the 6th time now, and on top of that, Ubisoft founder Yves Guillemot sent out a company-wide message telling staff, "Today more than ever, I need your full energy and commitment to ensure we get back on the path to success. I am also asking that each of you be especially careful and strategic with your spending and initiatives to ensure we're being as efficient and lean as possible. The ball is in your court to deliver this lineup on time and at the expected level of quality and show everyone what we are capable of achieving." While I guess I can appreciate a sense of motivation and rallying the troops, I feel like this just translates to is a ton of crunch. Yves is saying, hey, the ball's in your court, guys. Work really hard. Try to not spend a lot of money to deliver these games. But ultimately, yes, you know, you want people to work efficiently. You don't want people to squander time and resources. But these are creative endeavors. Maybe sometimes things take a little longer, and I don't think that needs to equate to working, 14-hour days or whatever. But more so, the issues that come with companies of this size come from the top. They really have a lot less to do with the ants doing all of the work below. Taking Beyond Good and Evil 2 as a perfect example, this game being in development for 15 years has a lot less to do with the individual artist and people writing the code and designers than it does with the management of all of those people and trying to make everything work in sync. Ubisoft certainly needs to get in a position where they are releasing games, releasing good games, releasing games that people like, but that has more to do with the top level design, their philosophies, how they're making their games, who they're making them for, and how they're monetizing them, and how that ends up translating to sales and people sticking around and wanting to invest in these titles, the players themselves, us, the gamers, what the developer's doing, and how, if they're working 8 or 12 hours a day or crunching or not, it's not on them to make the ultimate end product that has so much to do, again, with the head, with the people at the top. So yeah, I found that statement a little odd. But in general, yes, Ubisoft not doing particularly great right now. The company's recent history plus this latest news has resulted in the continued fall of their stock value. I think the lifetime of which kind of paints a good picture of the rise and fall of the company's not only popularity, but the success of their franchises and public reception. Their stock price peaked in 2018, which, to remind you, this was the year after the releases of For Honor, Wildlands, and AC Origins, before seeing a dramatic drop for 2 straight years through to 2020. And then rising up again to a peak in January 2021, from which point it's been steadily downhill, and it doesn't look like it's correcting course anytime soon. It's just been down, down, down. And if you're wondering why that is, well, let's take a look at some highlights of what they've released since their most recent peak in January 21. We saw Far Cry 6, Riders Republic, Rainbow Six Extraction, Roller Champions, and most recently that Mario Rabbids sequel, some Just Dance games. You know, there's some competent games in here I played and more or less enjoy, like Far Cry 6 and Riders Republic, for example, but nothing that really stands out, and there was a lot of mixed reception on, frankly, most of these titles, so it's not particularly surprising. It has also been reported, worth noting, that Ubisoft has been shopping around for potential acquisitions, but have been unable to find anyone willing to jump on, well, what is clearly a sinking ship. Like, things are just not looking good. Not trying to be dramatic clickbait here, but Ubisoft, just look at the stock price, dude. It's bad. And this just relates directly to how the company, the public perception of their company, and then also the performance of their games over these past several years. And yeah, has not been great. They had some hits here and there, but for the most part, fairly middling stuff. And it's really disappointing to me because I can't state enough. There was definitely a period, early Ubisoft, there's nostalgia attached to that, right? But even like middle Ubisoft, like we're talking mid 2010s-ish. I've talked about this a lot, but you look at games like the original Division, games like For Honor, games like Rainbow Six Siege. When that first came out, I was super obsessed, and numerous other titles, various entries in the Far Cry series. You go all the way back to their Splinter Cell games. What the heck are they doing with Splinter Cell? You got the first Beyond Good and Evil, which was really great. Ubisoft's a huge company. In fact, when I was putting this video together, I went through database and just to see like, hey, what's Ubisoft been making? Kind of like a refresher. Click on all games. There's like 900 games. Ubisoft has made and published a lot of games over the years. It's just an absurd number of games. And amongst those 900, there are definitely a bunch that I really liked and really enjoyed. And Ubisoft for a while was a company that made stuff that I was, at least personally, I was always like, yeah, I'm pumped to check it out. But slowly over time, between the design of their games, the bloat of their games, the repetitiveness of the formula, and how so many Ubisoft games just feel like other Ubisoft games with a slightly different skin, them pushing in that direction, I think, played a large role into where they sit today. And it makes me sad because there are a lot that I have liked about their games, and there's a lot of potential in their franchises if they can simply figure out a way to realize it and not make the games feel the same and not over monetize them on top of that. I'm not here to do a full business analysis of Ubisoft. I am also not qualified. I can just tell you from a player perspective, from a gamer perspective, how I feel about the company, and some of what I think might have led to their downfall. But in terms of specifically Beyond Good and Evil 2, the point of this video here, I am pretty happy to hear that they are still working on it. I have no idea what it's going to be when we see it next, because when we got that showcase in 2017 and then also in 2018, that was a far cry from what the original game was. They made some drastic changes, and there's a good chance if and when we see it again in the next couple of years, that it will be drastically different from what we saw in those 2017 and 2018 showcases. But the general premise, I think, is pretty good, and I think there's a lot of potential, and there was, at least for a time, a lot of excitement, and I would like to see that return. Not only for Beyond Good and Evil 2, but there's so much more on the horizon. We got those Assassin's Creed games. There's like 14 of them that they're making right now. That Avatar game, which people have been saying pretty good things about. I can't wait for Division Heartlands because I loved the first Division, and I particularly loved the survival mode that they had in it. This kind of predated the hype of Battle Royale and had a lot of those elements, and I thought they did much of it right. There were some things that they needed to fine-tune, but overall, it was a great starting concept, and supposedly Heartlands is going to expand upon that. I'm excited. We also have that Star Wars open world game, and then we have their development held titles, which is Skull and Bones, delayed again, and Beyond Good and Evil 2. I hope those see the light of day. There's a lot I like about Ubisoft. I would like to see them turn their ship around. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see them kind of make a resurgence and make good games that don't all feel the same. That's what I would love. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I hope. And Beyond Good and Evil 2 is among them. And apparently, it's still being made. Wow. All right, there you go. That does it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.